All right, welcome to a new episode of the KewCast. I'm John. I'm joined again by my good friend Eddie. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, John.
We hit number 40 today.
40 what?
40 episodes.
Oh.
Yes. We are almost half away to 100 episodes.
And if my memory serves me correctly, we're about 1 month away from our 1 year anniversary.
That's right. That is right. So we started like the third week in January of 2024.
Yep.
We've been pretty consistent. What are there, 52 weeks in the year? Or 52 work weeks? I think it's 52 weeks total.
Yeah, you nailed it, John.
So, yeah, hitting 40, we'll be hitting 42 episodes.
Right on.
For the year 2024. So not too bad.
What, 0.85 episodes per week.
That's right.
What do you think of my new headphones?
I dig them. They're my old drumming headphones, and these are so hopefully the audio works out this week. I updated my Mac operating system like an idiot, and one of the things that stopped working was my audio interface, so we don't have the magic of Logic.
We'll make it happen.
We're making it happen with a podcasting majigger. It sounds a little fuzzy right now, but we'll see. I'll try to make it sound better.
All right. So what do we have on tap for this week?
Oh, man, we've got a lot to cover. So a little bit of news. So the Ronbus Ripple delay, I'll give some details about that. We'll cover the winners of last week's paddle giveaway for the 12 Days of Christmas.
Holy smokes, was there ever a response to that?
There was a big response. And you did an analysis of all the responses, all the replies in the comment section of the YouTube, and it'll be fun to talk about. And we'll get into this week's paddle giveaway. We have another few paddles to give away this week. And then you and I hit some paddles this week. We'll cover those. We'll get into, hey, do ugly paddles play better? I'm not talking about graphics. I'm talking about shape, paddle shape. So do ugly paddles.
Do ugly people play better?
In my case. Correlation. No, that would mean I play excellent. So theory out. Gear of the week, I've got some updates on Winner's Edge shoes, and I'll talk a little bit about my favorite productivity apps. Maybe you have some things to add.
That is a lot for one show.
And we have Q&A to add on top of that.
Brace yourself, people.
Okay, well, let's get into our sponsors. We have two sponsors again this episode. First one is Pickleball Blue Book. Yes, our handy sign here. Pickleballbluebook.com. So if you want to evaluate the price of your paddle, if you're selling it person to person, that's the only resource right now that as far as I know, provides that service. So go on, enter your paddle model, your brand, and the condition of the paddle, and it'll give you an estimated price that you would be able to sell that.
You've gotten some feedback from a few people about Pickleball Blue Book.
Yeah, mostly about the fact that their umbrella company, Get to 11, takes donated paddles. If you actually, they donate the paddles. So if you trade in your paddle, you get 20% off of the price of a new paddle. Those paddles they give as donations to charities. So we've had a lot of happy charities as a result of this. So that's all good. But
very cool.
It's kind of unrelated. It is the umbrella company that powers Pickleball Blue Book, but they're not buying your paddles at Get to 11 for the price you're seeing on Pickleball Blue Book. That's only person to person. So if you want to sell it to another person, you could go on Craigslist.
Great starting point.
To get a good starting point.
Yep.
Go check it out.
And I see you're wearing a Centerline shirt today, John.
That is a good segue. Yeah, so Centerline is our second sponsor, and they do have some new apparel items. This is one of the newer colors of their T-shirts. Their high performance.
I've not seen the black before.
T-shirts.
That looks
it's
good.
Nice. That's yellow or green? The Centerline.
It's got a pickleball yellow.
Okay. Yeah.
Right on the border.
That's very appropriate. Good on them. So it's the same high-tech fabric as their previous T-shirts, but now they have a white and a black option to add to their colors. And they were laughing because they said those were the most requested colors, even though they had various shades of blue and gray and all of that. People want black and white. And I do have to agree that the black is
I love the
really sharp.
Understated branding.
Yeah,
Not
for sure.
too gaudy with the logos.
And the other new apparel item, and they have is a mid-weight hoodie. It's more lightweight. I wouldn't wear it necessarily in hot summer days, but so it's good for the fall and the spring, or even winter if you're playing hard. And I was just looking at the fabric breakdown of those, and it's really cool. So it's 92% bamboo charcoal and 8% spandex. I did not know they made bamboo charcoal for fabric.
I bet that's for odor control and sustainability.
Charcoal for sure, and then bamboo. Maybe there's some thermal qualities. It does tend to keep you at a steady temperature, like whether or not you're sitting at your computer or you're active. Then it kind of stabilizes your temperature. And I love the shape of it. Looks good. It also has the little thumb holes. If you're outside, you want to stretch it over your thumbs. So excellent stuff from Centerline.
Thank you, Centerline.
Absolutely. Okay. Eddie, let's move on to some news. We were going to talk a little bit about PPA results, but neither one of us had a chance to watch much of that, and we've got so much to cover in this episode.
Hey, John, you can either watch pickleball or play it.
It's one or the other.
I'll pick and play every time.
Especially you have 2 full-time jobs, right?
Right.
One thing I forgot to mention, I'll splice this into the beginning of the episode. Eddie, Melin is doing a 24-hour code starting tomorrow. So right when we publish this episode, you can get 25% off of a new Melin cap for 24 hours. So activation window will be 9 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, December 11th, and running 12 hours into 9 a.m. Pacific time, Thursday, December 12th. The discount code, JK25. That's the letters J and K, and then 25.
For 25% off.
25% off.
You're sporting a new Melin hat.
Correct, sir. Yes, I am. I think they've already sold out. I was going to wait till my code was active tomorrow to get this. I forget the name of this, but I dug it. So
it's hard to see, but there's like little pinpricks of gray, of light gray, and behind the dark gray, and that looks really cool.
Yeah, it's a cool hat.
All right, well,
but tomorrow,
I know where I'll be tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow I'm definitely ordering a couple new hats. So let's get on to the Ronbus Ripple delay.
What is taking so long? It's been months.
It's pretty nuts. So Ronbus released a statement on December 5th, which was one day before the scheduled release date, saying it's going to be delayed. And most of us knew this already, judging from the communication we had with Ronbus and not hearing anything about the actual release date. So the statement's basically saying that the Ripples did pass USAP certification processes, including PB Core, but their USAP apparently has not sent the written reports with the PB Core results to Ronbus. There was apparently a verbal confirmation that the Ripple, the beta version that they sent in, came in under 0.43. I don't know the exact number, but it was under 0.43. I confirmed that with the owner of Ronbus. And again, that was a verbal. They communicated that verbally, but Ronbus is hesitant to release the paddle until they get documented paperwork. Smart, but like they don't want don't want a YOLA issue where it's released and then it gets pulled from the approved list. And there's reason to believe that USAP is scrutinizing the Ripple. I do know that they are reanalyzing PB Core for the beta version that they originally found was under 0.43. I don't know the results of that. I don't think the owner of Ronbus knows yet, but they did send that back to the lab to get retested. And I did speak with Dong, the owner, just yesterday, and he mentioned that he's been in communication with USAP. They have not tested the newest version of the production model yet, even though he's sent them emails saying, "Hey, I've got this. Can what do I do? Do I send it in?" So that's kind of the delay here. Like he doesn't want to release the paddle because there's some slight alterations in the production model versus the beta that was been tested. So that's a big red flag. Smart not to push forward with releasing this because it has been slightly changed. We don't want to fail that similarity testing like YOLA did, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, John, for something that hasn't been released officially yet, there certainly are a lot of the betas out there that people have been using. Oh my goodness. We'll talk about this later when we go through some of the comments from last week's video.
That's nutty. I did not realize how many were out there, but yeah, we'll get into that in a second. And I heard also that Ronbus sent in, I don't know if his which version of the Ripple it was, or what kind of paddle it was, but I know the core was the same as the Ripple. I know that much. They sent it into the lab that does the PB core testing for USAP, so the Elements Lab at U.S. Space and Defense Laboratory. And they ran the PB core test on this paddle that Ronbus sent in, and that one also was under 0.43 PB core. So that's not an official testing for USAP, but, I think Dong, the owner, is confident that these newest ones, which do hit really hard, are going to pass the PB core test. So that's where it is. I did also hear that the paddles that he sent out, the production models, some of them, like the ones he sent me and Chris and Isaac, us and Chris and Isaac, they do hit harder. Dong hit with his paddles from that batch also, and he admitted that they hit harder than the original betas. And there's something about if you press your fingers into the sides. Can you hand me that one right there? There's a crunching noise, and it's nothing to do with the polypropylene. That's the beta model. Right. But if you press it near the sides, some paddles are crunching, and it's from the foam. Wait a second, see if I can get this to do it. Oh, there it is. So what he's saying is that these production models, the carbon fiber grid system that goes in a grid across the face does not extend to the very edges. So he's creating a new batch that does extend the carbon fiber to the edge. So that is presumably going to fix that issue. I'm not going to make any judgments on the crunching. I will say that it doesn't concern me as much as if the polypropylene core was crunching, because foam is going to sound like that when it's compressed. And I don't know if it's actually damaging the foam or the foam is damaged, or if it's just kind of normal and it's not going to eventually break. But regardless, he wants to fix that issue. So there's a newer version of the production model coming out with an expanded carbon fiber grid system. So it's all just kind of...
Is this the one you hit today?
Yeah. It's a rocket. It's all kind of a mess. And I just hope that... Who knows if we'll ever see the Ripple come out. Like I said, the USAP is scrutinizing it. Maybe they're going to be like, this hits too hard. We need to recalibrate our PB core formula, and this is going to be above the caps. And I didn't realize that so, like you said, like so many of the betas went out. I knew that Dong had this program. It's kind of like an ambassador program. What was it called? The Connect or something like that. And you could apply to be in it. But I didn't realize the extent of how many of those paddles were out in the wild. And, I probably wouldn't have gotten so excited about the beta version if I had known that it would have been available for people to purchase at that time in the quantities that they were sent out, because we hadn't, run our destructive testing on it yet. We didn't know if it was going to break or heat up, and it did heat up eventually to like gearbox, pro power levels. And, so I would have been more conservative and cautious at that stage had I known that there were going to be a bunch going out. At that time, we thought, okay, it's not coming out until December. We can talk about our current perception of it. I know that Ronbus has other paddles in the works that eventually will use maybe something similar in the core. Dong is more excited about future paddles that he has in the pipeline that will be released. So it's an unfortunate thing, because he's been working on this Ripple for years now, actually. Got caught up in all of this kind of kerfuffle with USAP and the new rollout of the PB core, and the controversy with Yola, and doesn't necessarily look good that there have been so many iterations of the Ripple. That's maybe it says something about trying to work with foam in that capacity in the core. That's just too unpredictable. I don't know, but originally it had the actual ripples on the face. It hit less hard. The newer production models hit harder unknowingly, and then there's a crunching in the sides. So just kind of a mess right now. That's about all I want to say about it. How about you, Eddie?
No, I think you covered it all, John. I think we're all just kind of waiting with bated breath to see where all this ends up.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about the 12 Days of Christmas paddle giveaway.
Yeah, buddy.
So we have some winners. we gave away 4 paddles and accessories from the first week. And we have 4 winners. I just, like I said, to find the winners, we had over 1,300 entries for this giveaway, which is pretty crazy. 1,300 people filled out that form on my website. So what I did is you can Google random number generator, pulls up a little app on your phone. You just tell the total number that you want it to go up to. So I put in the 1323 or whatever the total number was, and then hit,
pick 4.
Just pick one, and then it goes to that number. I found that number in the email chain, and I checked to make sure that they had all the required information, including the trivia question from last week, which was, where did I work? Which pizza restaurant did I work at in college? Hideaway Pizza.
Yeah, okay.
That was the answer. Most people got that correct. And when I went to that number that the random number generator generated, if they got it correct, they were one of the 4 winners. So did that likewise for 4 different people.
So did it work out that the 4 people chose 4 different paddles?
No.
Okay.
No. All of them.
So they get what they get.
Yeah, they get what they get. But I have the 4 winners here. So first one is Alvin Orr. Okay, so Alvin is the winner of the 11Six24 paddle. So any choice from their current inventory. So congratulations to Alvin. And the next winner, Christian Pareto. It's spelled Christian, unless they misspelled it in the entry. Looks like Christian, but Christian Pareto. Pickleball Apes Apes Pulse series paddle. Tacy White. Non-traditional spellings of names here. Tacy. Tacy White's the 3rd winner of the Chorus Fire. And lastly, Courtney Casterline is the winner of the Gearbox Pro Ultimate Hyper Paddle, together with protective tape, cleaning block, lead tape, over wraps, and a 3-pack of the Gearbox balls. And each of these 4 paddles also gets slice cap tailored to that paddle, and a 4-pack of the Bodie over grips, and a 4-pack of the crown balls. So congratulations to our week 1 winners. Eddie.
That is awesome. How do they get in touch with you? Or how do they?
I'll send out an email asking for their address.
Okay.
Confirm you're a winner. And we'll go from there.
I don't know how you feel about it, but I would love to get a picture of these guys holding their paddle.
Fantastic. Great
That'd be
idea.
Cool to see.
Great
idea. Happy to post that on the show.
Love it. And Eddie.
Totally optional, but would love to see it.
You, good
Am
sir.
I a winner?
You're always a winner. You actually did an analysis. So how many comments did we get in the YouTube?
Oh my goodness, more than 1,000.
Okay.
It was insane. It went on and on forever. We have, John, some amazing fans. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our audience is crazy. Maybe not a representative sample of the entire pickleball community, but probably a representative sample of the higher educated, smarter, better looking, paddle aware, early adopter portion of the community. So I think it's a good thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But more than 1,000 comments. In those comments, John, they talked about their paddles that they were using. So we asked our community, what paddles are you using and what paddles would you like to be using from our contest giveaway? 60 manufacturers were mentioned and 148 different paddle models.
Wow.
That is crazy. That is
nuts. By the way, thank you for pouring through over 1,000 comments to get these numbers. So you sent me the rundown of all the numbers you crunched out of this.
Some surprises in there.
Really interesting stuff. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like you ran some bar charts. I'll put them in the B-roll. But what surprised me is the number 1 brand of paddles that people are currently using. 11Six24.
Yeah, 12 point something percent
Yeah.
of all responses were on 11Six24, and that is surprising.
Out of all the paddle brands out there.
Out of 60 manufacturers.
Right. And like you mentioned, our viewers and listeners are probably, a subset of the broader pickleball playing population who really know their paddles, right? But that speaks wonders about 11Six24. I mean, they just started this year. They may have put out something end of last year, but I mean, they were unknown until middle of the year.
Right.
And they're just
They came out with
killing
that
it.
Harache
Yep.
originally, and it got rave reviews by us included.
Yeah.
And from then, it's been a rocket ship.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Olsen definitely put him on the map with his first review. But my goodness, they followed up with that with many, many great releases.
Yep.
Not many, but within a year, I'd say many great releases, including the ones we're going to talk about today. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and they're just a smart business people.
But Honolulu Pickleball Company was a number 2 at 10% of all responses. So between the two of them, almost 1 in 4 paddles are from those two companies. Amazing.
Honolulu, huge success this year also.
Yeah. So rounding out our top 10 list of manufacturers, number 3, Vatic, with 7.3%, 6-0, Ronbus, Spartus, Paddletech, Pickleball Apes.
Wow. Okay.
2 more. Bread and Butter at almost 5%, and Volair.
Okay. There's some surprises
in there. Who's not in that list of top 10?
You said many. Yola, right?
Yola's not in the top 10.
Oh, wow.
Selkirk's not in the top 10.
Right.
Gearbox isn't in the top 10. So I think it's really cool to see some of these niche players who really weren't in existence a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Right.
Just explode onto the scene and really become a force.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see if we could poll the broadest, most representative sample of pickleball players, what this lineup would be. Certainly wouldn't look like this. I'm sure it'd be Selkirk, Yola are the top 2, and then on down. But I wonder, of these, which are going to enter, where they would enter in the top 10 maybe.
Of the full marketplace?
Full marketplace.
Yeah.
Right. The full representative sample of players. Yeah, really cool stuff. Any other cool finds, Eddie?
You want to talk about pickleball paddle models?
Yeah, let's do it.
This was really surprising to me. The number 1 paddle mentioned in our comments was what? Wasn't the Shapeshifter or the Ripple or the Mod T.
It's got to be the J2K, right?
It was the J2K.
Okay.
7% of all entries. This was, let's see, out of 1,000 plus comments. How many is that? So 72 mentions of the J2K, which is nuts. The number 2 player was the Monarch Allcourt at 51 mentions.
Wow.
So the J2K really, with our informal polling, far and away the top model. That shocked me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's necessary. It's informal in some ways, but it's definitely a high enough sample size to gather some meaningful data, over 1,000.
Yeah. We had some manufacturers show up several times in our top 10 list, which is interesting. So number 1 was the J2K, followed by the Monarch Allcourt, the Olympus, which is, that's brand new, right?
Yeah. Wow.
The Pulse V, another brand new one. The Prism, the Ripple is showing up in our top 10 for a non-production model. That's pretty good.
Right.
The Shapeshifter, which shows you that a company, if they do one thing right, they could be successful.
Yeah.
One paddle can make or break a company in the Shapeshifter. The Saga, the Mach 2 Forza, and then the Jelly Bean.
Okay.
So 11-6-24 again showing up multiple times in our list.
Was Volair in the top 10 brands, or no? I don't think I remember them being in there.
Volair was number 10.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yep. But again, that's a company with really one paddle.
Yeah. True. And from beginning of this year is when I reviewed it. And Braden reviewed it, I think, first. But again, surprising the Ripple is mentioned so many times. I was shocked at Worlds in Dallas that I saw so many Ripples. I mean, they weren't nearly as prevalent as the Mod, for example, but I probably saw 6 people playing with Ripples.
It was a lot of fun to go through these comments. People are, yes, we do have the best fans out there, but they're so pleasant to interact with online. They're so giving of their information and their time to take part in this kind of information gathering. It's really cool to see.
Our audience is so great to get that much response. I don't think I've ever seen a YouTube video with 1,000 comments on it. I'm sure the ones with millions of views have thousands of comments, but but not for 10,000 viewers. Right. That's a tenth of the viewership. And clearly there was an incentive to leave a comment. Right. But thank you all. I know they weren't all just responses for people wanting the paddles. There were also some
feedback
commentary,
about the show.
Feedback. Yeah.
So we've got a couple graphs. We have our top manufacturers from this information gathering. We've got the top paddle. So we'll share that in B-roll.
All right, Eddie, should we get on to this week's challenge?
Yeah, let's do it.
This week's
More
giveaway.
paddles.
Okay. So let's do something similar this week. Let's give some kind of rules. And one of the rules is, unfortunately, you need to be living in the U.S., the continental U.S., to play this. The paddle companies don't want to ship, overseas. It's going to cost more than the price of the paddle. So it's restricted to U.S. people living in the U.S. If you entered last week and you did not win, you can enter again this week. You do have to enter again, so we're not going to count the last week's as relevant for this week.
On the flip side of that, if you did happen to win, if you're one of the four, please don't enter again. But if you do, you're going to get kicked out anyway. So.
Right. You can't win twice. Okay. Anything else?
I think that covers the major
regulations.
points.
Okay.
Once this is all said and done, if people are interested in knowing the full list of winners, we'll make that available.
Okay. So the process, again, to enter is the same as last week, but we're going to have a new trivia question. So the process is leave a comment on the YouTube channel under this video and tell us, what you're currently playing with.
Let's not do that. We already did that.
So you want to do something else.
How about what ball are you using?
Okay, I like that.
All right, your favorite ball.
Okay, so tell us your favorite ball and which paddle you would prefer out of the ones we're going to discuss today. And Eddie, you have a new trivia question.
Yeah. Last week we asked about your work experience.
Okay.
This week we'll turn the tables back to me. From episode 37, what shoe am I currently wearing? So we talked about a bunch of shoes, but what am I wearing on court these days?
Your current pickleball main shoe.
You got it.
Okay.
Don't put it in comments because you'll be giving it away to other people.
What episode is that?
Episode 37.
Okay. So the second part of this, or after you leave your comment, I'll leave a link to the form to fill out to enter to win on my website at johnqpickleball.com. I'll leave a link to that in the description of this video. Click on that link, go to the form. It's going to ask your name, your email address, so I can contact you if you win. And it'll ask you which of the paddles you want to enter to win. You can enter one or all of them. And then there's the answer to the quiz of which shoe is Eddie maining right now.
Episode 37. Let's hear it.
Episode 37. Right on.
Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, and let's move on to...
How many paddles are we doing this week?
So we're going to give away 6 paddles this week. Originally, this was going to be a 12 paddles of Christmas challenge giveaway, but now we have double that. We've got 24 paddles to give away. So next week's going to be our biggest giveaway. This week we're giving away 6 paddles. Firstly, the Engage Pursuit Pro 16, Pro 1 6.0. I had that up here somewhere, but that's their most popular paddle, Engage's most popular paddle. Yola will give away a paddle of your choice from their inventory, as long as they have it in stock. So if you wanted the Hyperion 3S or the Scorpius 3S or the Mod GA15, you can add 14 or 16 millimeter, your choice, as long as they have it in stock. Pickleball Central, similarly, they'll give you any of the paddle in their stock that you want.
That's a free-for-all.
That's a free-for-all. Nice. They carry hundreds of paddles, including all of the most relevant ones. Ronbus, giving away a Ripple. Okay. So one more will be out in the wild. So if you had your eye on the Ripple all this time, here's your chance.
Exciting.
6-0. They've released the Ruby Infinity, and
I want to see that one.
It looks sharp. I actually got to play with it a little bit in Dallas. I haven't received one from 6-0 yet, but I was impressed with it. I mean, it feels, for an edgeless paddle, it's hitting all the right notes. It feels a little heavier, which is good. More twist weight. I think they've beefed up the internal weighting. Regardless, good paddle. So giving the Ruby Infinity Wave together with their new tour bag. So that big 6-0 bag, they fixed some of the issues with it, like the handle that would pop off. And that thing is a monster. You can carry your kitchen sink in there. Lastly, Franklin is giving away one of their tour paddles, so their most popular paddles of your choice. You can get the one J.W. Johnson plays with, or Georgia Johnson, or Hayden Patriquin, as well as a 12-pack of X40s, the standard pickleball, and a sling bag, a Franklin sling bag.
Nice.
So thank you to all of the participating brands this week: Engage, Yola, Pickleball Central, Ronbus 60, and Franklin.
And is that with all the accessories as well?
Exactly.
Okay.
So each of these, so up to the first 12 paddles, Slice is offering a slice cap, and Bodie is offering a 4-pack of overgrips, and
Crown
balls, 3-pack of Crown balls is going with those two.
All right. Good luck, everyone.
All right. Let's move on. Paddles of the week. So 11Six24 will be releasing their new Power Series in February, early February. So it's a couple months away.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that far out.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing I like about 11Six24, they're not sending us the paddle 2 weeks before launch or a couple of days before launch. We're actually getting to test these paddles and give our initial impressions. And they're not available for purchase yet, so it's not like they're going to be betas out there. So we can give our honest impressions without fearing that people are going to, run out and buy it, and then later we're going to change our minds. You know what I mean? So first of all, I want to talk about their 3x3 matrix. So one of the funny issues with the 11Six24 when they started was A, the silly name. Remember, we could not remember 11Six24. We called it 1160, and B, the naming of their paddles was originally just horrible, like the Hirachi X Plus control, and it wasn't a control paddle, and it wasn't the plus, and the X didn't mean anything. So they've slowly been correcting, getting on a better path for their paddle names. He's owning the 11Six24. Now everybody knows it, so it's fine. But they've changed their shapes. They now have 3 shapes, including a new hybrid shape, and they now have 3 power levels for those shapes. So the shapes are the Hirachi X, which is their original elongated, right? It has the extra long handle.
Do you have that one?
I'm sure we've got one on the wall somewhere. Maybe not.
The other ones are over there.
Yeah. But everybody knows the Hirachi X. That's keeping its name. We've got the new hybrid shape, which is called their Vapor. And then we've got the formerly called the Monarch, which is now the Pegasus, which is their wide body shape. Which I'm glad they moved away from Monarch, because Monarch is the paddle that everybody bought as their first paddle at Dick's Sporting Goods, right?
I did.
Yeah, I did too. So I think Pegasus is a more appropriate name. So we've got 3 shapes: Pegasus, wide body, Vapor, hybrid, Hirachi X elongated, and 3 power levels. So the Jelly Bean is their control models. The All Court is just that, an All Court model. In between that and the Power model, and the Power is called the Power. Okay, so we got to hit with their 3 shapes and the Power version of these today. So let's talk about them.
Are you saying that there's going to be 3 jelly beans?
There are going to be 3 jelly beans.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So I actually did not hit with the Hirachi X, their elongated one today. I have hit a couple games with it, so I can kind of speak to it. But today we focused on the Pegasus and the Vapor. So let's start first with their wide body. This is the Pegasus. I'll compare that to the Monarch All Court. It is the same shape, right? So we've got 2 power levels in the same shape paddle. They've changed the Monarch name to Pegasus, and this is their new power paddle.
Wasn't the Yola code name the Pegasus at one point? Maybe not.
I don't think so, but it has a Yola kind of captured the market for, Greek mythology names. so every time I see something similar, I'm like, oh, it sounds like Yola. So let me back up a second before we get into our impressions of this. So that this is what we're calling kind of a Gen 3 paddle. So it's foam enhanced. It has one thick layer of foam. It's expanded edge foam basically, and it's a ring of EVA foam. So it's not like the expanding crunchy foam. It's EVA. And it is a floating core, so it's polypropylene in the center, and the foam goes in a band all the way around the polypropylene. Interestingly, there is no fiberglass in this layup. It's 3 layers of carbon fiber, peel ply surface. What else? I found some stuff in the X-ray. Actually, we'll talk about it. Why not? It's 2 months out, so I'll put the X-ray up and B-roll. There is an interesting layer. You can see it in the X-ray. It almost looks like there's tape going along the lateral edges of the paddle. And what that is an extra layer, a thin layer of carbon fiber wrapped over the foam, right? So the foam is not exposed directly underneath the surface, and you can press on it. You cannot press. You're similar to what Apes did, where they have those bands of carbon fiber covering the foam. Right. But this is almost like a wrap instead of just strips. So there's no crunching, on the sides. So yeah, there's all that, and again, no fiberglass in the layup. All right, let's get into our impressions of it. First, what do you think, Eddie, of the Pegasus?
Well, the shape is obviously very familiar, and so it's what we would expect from that Monarch shape. Very maneuverable, easy to control, big sweet spot. I don't know how you felt about the difference between this Pegasus and the Vapor, but they didn't play very similarly or feel very similar, in my opinion, which I assume they have nearly the exact same construction methodology. So to have those differences is really interesting to me.
What differences did you notice?
I felt like the Pegasus played very stiff on the face. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of rebound on the ball. So the ball was coming off very quickly. Like
not a lot of dwell time.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. Just popping off.
Yeah, popping off. It was very poppy, but that rebound was so fast, I was struggling a little bit with control. Mm-hmm. Just kind of splashing stuff everywhere.
Yeah. It's a poppier than you would have liked for the Pegasus.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I noticed the same. So I started with the Pegasus. I was like, this is my shape. Mm-hmm. I love the Monarch All Court, which is not going to be now the Pegasus All Court. And I was thinking, okay, Gen 3 is going to feel foamy, and right away it felt stiff, like you said. I do feel like it loosens up a little bit. Nothing like the Apes, where it gets noticeably softer yet. But I've only had, a couple of hours with the Pegasus and more with the Vapor. But it does loosen up a bit. But yeah, I wasn't getting the dwell time I was expecting. I do like it. I like it a lot, and the power is there. Pop is really good on that one. But yeah, I agreed. Like, I'm going to say it now. My favorite of these is the Hyper.
The Vapor.
The Vapor. Sorry.
Yeah.
Too many names. So yeah, my favorite of the three is the Vapor.
Absolutely. The star of the show.
Yeah. It has a little bit more dwell time, a little bit more forgiving, which is surprising. Forgiving is the wrong word. The sweet spot definitely more narrow on it, but the dwell time, I was able to control it. It's less pop and a little more dwell time.
Agree.
Yeah.
It felt like with a little bit of play time, it was on a faster acceleration path to break in than the Pegasus, at least from what we were able to see within a couple of hours of playing with these two paddles.
So this is what the Vapor looks like.
Dig that shape, man.
Do you like the aesthetics of it?
I like the shape of it.
Okay.
I hope there's time between now and February to ditch the gradient, because
I can't even see the gradient. I'm colorblind. And I saw people mentioning it, and I was like, what?
I like the teal color. I just don't like the gray to green.
Is it?
Gradient.
Okay. That's why I can't see it. I cannot see green to save my life.
You're lucky. It's a gift, John.
So it looks like a light gray edge guard to me. But I have to say, like, aesthetically, I actually like the look of the Pegasus a little bit better. I got used to that wide body shape. Originally, it looked a little bit pizza peel-ish, but something about the really tight corners here and the very less concave top. It's almost straight, but not really. I think I'm going to get used to this too, but right away, I wouldn't say that aesthetically the shape is as pleasing as other hybrid paddles, but I am reserving the right to change my mind on that. Regardless, initial impressions of the shape, I wasn't expecting to like this one. I was like, all right, another hybrid paddle. The Pegasus is going to be my jam. This one is far and away my favorite of the three shapes that they've given us to play with. So
I did not even pick up on the one thing I was looking forward to on the Pegasus was just the massive sweet spot, which it has.
Yeah.
I didn't actually feel any degradation in the sweet spot on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I've yet to yet. I know it's got to be a little bit more narrow, just given the shape of this. But it's plenty forgiving. And I think what's going on too is I think the Pegasus just must have a massive sweet spot, and we're hitting close enough to the center that we're not getting away from that. But you know what I found in an X-ray with the carbon fiber sheet overlapping the edges here. Not only is that covering the foam, but it's also adding weight to the sides and increasing that twist weight, and it's less prone to twist. That's something else. I mean, I did put some, I think they do benefit from my tastes to have, I have 3 grams of tungsten on each side, and, you know, I added it at 4 and 8 on the Vapor. I think it's the same thing on the Pegasus, and I think that serves it well. That just makes it a mess. It's well over 7 points for the twist weight on each of these. Yeah, I haven't measured it, but and I don't know the swing weight. But
I've got 7 on the twist weight for that one stock.
Okay. Yeah, it's got to be close to 8
it's
now.
It's huge for the Pegasus.
They don't start off as the lightest weight paddles, which is not a bad thing. You know, you can feel the weight in your hands. They're not heavy paddles. Do you have the swing weight?
113.
113 for the hybrid?
For the Vapor, yeah.
Wow, okay. Feels a little, I mean, it is heavier than that now with the perimeter weighting. What was the Pegasus?
Pegasus at 112.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you actually measured this on your graffiti?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Thank you for doing that.
You bet.
What was the Hirachi X?
Hirachi came in at 117 swing weight and 6.4.
That's amazing. All of them, even the elongator, are over 6 twist weight.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so what we did today, Eddie, was we took all of these out, except for the Hirachi X, and compared them directly to where the current power paddle lineup is. So we have a bunch of power paddles that we compared them to. So we've got the...
Right, so in our lineup today was these two, the Apes Pulse V.
So that's not a power paddle, but we wanted to throw that in because I know people are going to ask because it's comparable.
Right. The Ronbus Ripple, the R2 shape, the Gearbox Pro Ultimate Hyper, the ESQC in both thicknesses, 14.3 and 12.7, and then the Yola Hyperion 3S.
Exactly. Okay.
So we hit with all of them today.
Let me look at the numbers we crunched here. What do you want to do, Eddie? Do you want to get into the serve speed first?
Yeah,
and
let's do that.
Subjective impressions?
Yeah,
okay. So what we did was I recorded Eddie hitting 6 serves and then 6 pop. It wasn't a backhand punch volley, but it was kind of a punch volley, kind of a forehand.
Very compact. Just
one
of these.
Yeah. All right. So, and then we recorded 5 serves for me and 5 backhand punch volleys and got the highest score. So I averaged your scores. I got the highest reading on mine. I thought that would give us some inkling. This is not a big sample size. Normally I serve 20 times and get 20 of those metrics for pop also. So these might be a little off, but I wanted to kind of compare these two. All right. So in terms of max miles per hour for my serves, the number 1 was the Ronbus R2 Ripple. That's 64.1 miles per hour. That's a heavy serve. Now, that was probably one of those that did not go in. A couple of the Ronbus was the hardest to control for sure. There was a couple of paddles that almost every one was landed in, even though some of them all of these were over 60 miles an hour, the highest. Anyway, 64.1. Gearbox Pro Ultimate Hyper was the second most powerful, 62.9. The Vapor came in third for me at 61.6. Then the Pegasus at 60.9. Then the ESQC, 12.7. Interesting. That got a higher score for serve than did the 14.3. That came in at 60.9, tying the Pegasus Power. Apes Pulse V was next. And then ESQC, 14.3.
That's interesting. Okay.
Those two are tied at 60.3. And then the slowest one, which is also interesting for me, was the Hyperion 3S. For serve, that came in at 60.0 miles per hour. Okay.
So the Pulse is deservedly on this list then?
For me, it's something about the way maybe it's just me. I'm hitting it differently than others, but yeah. Actually, that is a newer Pulse. It's not the one I broke in. It was definitely hotter than what most people are experiencing. That's my newest one, which hasn't, little sneak peek, I'll give an update on this probably next week, but it has broken in. It's gotten that plusher feel. It's softer, the lower tone, more forgiving, bigger sweet spot. The power level has not increased as much as my original Apes V. So I think this newer model is more similar to what everybody else is experiencing, including you with the S. Okay. Let's move on to yours. So your average scores, if we sort those, we get a slightly different lineup, but mostly similar. So Ronbus R2 Ripple is your highest averaging serve. Your next one is the Gearbox Pro Ultimate Hyper, same as mine. The Vapor comes in next on yours. So
all right.
ESQC 14.3 is your next one. So you get a little more power than that. ESQ 14.3 is your next one, similar to mine. Vapor power, ESQC 12.7 below that. Hyperion 3S below that, followed by the Pegasus Power and the Apes Pulse V.
All right.
I'd say that aligns more with kind of what I was feeling on the court than the scores, my highest serve score, for each one, the highest miles per hour. I think yours line up exactly how I feel like they should line up on the court. So you got, in terms of overall power, with maybe the exception of the ESQs. For some reason, my 12.7 is a hot little paddle. So Ronbus R2 Ripple, number 1. Number 2, Gearbox Pro Ultimate Hyper. Number 3, ESQC 14.3. Number 4, Vapor Power. Number 5, ESQC 12.7. Number 6, Hyperion 3S. Number 7, Pegasus. And then number 8, Apes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's right about where.
Yeah. And my guess is my serves were probably in the low 50s somewhere, because
you were not trying
I was honestly going for like how I would serve in tournament play.
As consistent as possible with your swings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So cool stuff on that. All right. Now, we also rated subjectively on a scale of 1 to 10, power for each paddle, pop, sweet spot, spin, control, and then the feel of the paddle, like the paddle face. Is it soft? Is it plush? Is it crispy?
Did you give a number to
stiff?
that? Or
No,
did you
I
just
just described it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about these in the order in which we just sorted them. So start with the Ronbus R2
Okay,
Ripple.
the Ronbus R2 Ripple. I have a total score of 49. Obviously skewed towards pop and power. Both of those were rated a 9 for me.
Okay. What was your total score?
40.
Okay. So you got 40. My total is 44. Let's go through quickly again what you got for each. So power is?
Power and pop at 9 each. Sweet spot 8. Spin 7 and control 7.
Okay.
I put in a score for feel. That's why I was getting that other number.
Okay. So what did you describe the feel as?
Plush, springy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right. I got slightly higher overall score than you. I gave it a 10 for power. 10 out of 10. Pop, 9. Sweet spot, significantly larger than yours. That's our discrepancy. I gave it a 9 for a sweet spot. I feel like that sweet spot.
Well, I was at 8, so.
Okay. So, caveat there, weighted. With perimeter weighting, it's at a 9. Without, it's less. I'd probably put it as 7. Sweet spot. Spin, 9 for me. I get wicked spin on these. And then control, 7. What was your control score?
7.
Okay. So similar overall. That one takes the cake for me for power. It takes the cake for our miles per hour test, radar gun test. Next, we got the Gearbox Pro Ultimate Hyper.
Right.
That's the second in terms of overall firepower we got with the radar gun.
And I'll put it at the exact same place as the Ronbus. A 9 for power and a 9 for pop.
Oh, okay. I've got a different perception of it. So I got a 9 for power, so slightly below my power score for the Ripple, and then a 7 for pop. I don't feel like it has as much pop, nearly as much pop as the Ripple. I think that's where the Ripple's more deadly, in a good and bad way, is at the kitchen when you're returning stuff. I'd say that the Hyper does have good pop, so at a 7 out of 10, but not crazy pop.
Okay.
Sweet spot?
A 6.
Okay. I gave it an 8. So I feel like it, and again, this is weighted a little bit, 3 grams on each side. I feel like it has a really nice sweet spot. Spin?
7.
I got an 8. Kind of agree on that. And control?
A 6.
7 for me on control.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's some discrepancies, but some alignment as well.
What's your description
Total
of the
score? Feel a lot like the Ronbus. The feel's different though. There's a sensation where the face almost feels disconnected from the core. I don't know really how else to put it other than that.
I don't get that.
But it is very plush. Yeah.
So I got a soft feel, dense, minimal vibrations. Maybe that's where you're getting kind of the face separation from the core. It's just like they've done so well in damping the vibrations in this paddle. It's just like it feels really nice to hit. So,
37 overall.
37 overall. I got a 39. All right, let's move on to the ESQC 14.3. Eddie, what is your power rating?
Yeah, I've got
for
an
that?
8 on power.
Same for me. Pop?
7.
6 for me. Sweet spot?
7.
7 for me. Spin?
7.
9 for me. Control?
8.
8 for me also.
All right.
And then my feel is soft, hollow feeling, springy. All of those together that's a really typical of Paddletech's Bantam cores. They're kind of hollow feeling. It is that large cell polypropylene, so it has more of a hollow feel and very springy. What would you describe it as?
Yeah, I like the description of hollow feeling because you get that sort of deepness when you hit the ball.
Right.
What were some of your other descriptors?
Springy.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
But this more than the others is these ESQs have that kind of dead spot at the top. And so I'd have to call that like inconsistent across the face.
Yeah.
Which is, it can be modified a bit to sort of reduce that a little bit with some head weight. But
it'll never be, even with head weight, it'll never be as big.
Exactly.
As consistent as a sweet spot. That's why we both got a 7 for a sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
Total score 38 for me.
37 here.
Okay. Let's jump over to the 12.7 now.
So I'm still an 8 on power.
It's the same, yeah. Pop?
A touch higher on pop at an 8.
Same. Okay. Sweet spot?
An 8.
7 for me for the sweet spot. Spin?
Spin is a 7.
9 for me. So I love the spin on these Paddletechs. I got a 7 for control.
I do as well.
Okay. 39 total for me.
38 here.
Okay. Same feel, soft, springy, hollow.
Right.
Less soft than the 14.3, obviously. It's thinner. Okay. Moving on to the 11Six24 Vapor Power. What was your power score on that?
Yeah, I'll give that an 8.
Same. Pop?
Same. 8.
8 for me too. Sweet spot?
Gonna bump that up to a 9.
Okay. That's a big one. 8 for me on the sweet spot.
Okay.
Again, this is their hybrid, the Vapor. Spin?
A 9.
10 for me.
Yeah, it's pretty grippy.
Holy cow, these things spin. Like the first day out on the court, something about this paddle I forgot to mention when we were talking about the play experience with it is similar to like an exponential power curve. I feel like it has an exponential spin curve.
That's interesting.
Yeah, where to really tap into the power, you've got to spin it. I kept hitting balls out when I switched over to this from my Apes Pulse, A, because it is a little more powerful, and B, I was not brushing up on the ball enough. I was hitting the ball too flat and not trusting in the inherent spin that this paddle has. Now, I don't know if this spin is a result strictly of the coarse peel ply or there's some more going into it in terms of dwell time. It doesn't feel very dwelly, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not there because there is the foam around the edge. It might be pocketing the ball. It just doesn't feel that way.
I would say there's more dwell feel on this than the Pegasus.
Yes, that is true. That is true. But anyway, yeah, trusting in that spin and really, if you're going to crank on the ball, hit it, brush up on it as much as you can, and it'll deliver that top spin and dip the ball in. So love the spin on these.
Where were you on that? On 10?
10,
okay.
Yeah. That was the highest score out of
I
all
was
these.
at a 9.
Okay. Control?
An 8.
7 for me. And then how did you describe the feel?
Feels great. I think it's just going to feel better over time.
Yeah.
I think that's just going to loosen up a bit, give you a little bit more dwell time and that feeling of it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely on the right path.
Yeah. How would you compare this to like the YOLO 3S's? The feel of it.
Stiffer.
Stiffer
right
than the
now.
3S's?
Yeah.
See, I didn't feel that quite that way. The Hyperion 3S felt a little less stiff than I remember the 3Ss hitting, because I had the impression that the 3Ss were very stiff, and that's coming compared to their Monty 815 and their original Gen 3s, which they are much stiffer. Mm-hmm. But I put it very much similar to the stiffness of the 3S models, especially in the Vapor. The Pegasus feels a little stiffer.
If I were to make a comparison, it would be to a stock Pulse S, right out of the box.
Okay. Yeah. Similar. And then the Pulse S definitely softens up a bit.
Yep.
So there is kind of a, not quite the foamiest of feel out of the box. It is a little bit deeper tone.
That's correct.
It doesn't have, like I was comparing it when we were hitting the 11Six24 power models against the other person on the court was using something else with the traditional polypropylene core. There's a high pingy sound with the traditional core, and then there's a lower pitched tone. Yep. Not nearly as low as the Ripple.
It'll never get there.
No, but there is. You can tell there's foam in the core just from the sound of it. Okay, so stiffish for me. Dense. There's another descriptor for the feel. It feels like a very dense paddle.
Mm-hmm.
Not hollow at all. The opposite of hollow. Very dense. I like it. And you know what? The stiffness of the Pegasus feels like. I would say it feels like it has a layer of fiberglass in the layup, even though it doesn't, versus the, it's going to take me a while, the Vapor, which I don't feel like it has fiber. It does not, but I don't feel like it has fiberglass in the layup, similar to the Pegasus. Total score, 41 for me.
42.
Excellent. All right. Hyperion 3S. What was your power score for the?
An 8.
Same. Pop?
I'll make it easy for you. It's just 8 across the board.
Okay. 8 for me also for Pop. Sweet Spot 7. So mine Sweet Spot's a little lower. Spin's 9 for me, a little higher than yours. Control, lower. 6 for me. And I think this is also me coming from being habituated to a wide body standard shape paddle. I've been using those shapes for a good while now. Going to the Hyperion 3S, which is elongated, it's just going to have a more narrow sweet spot. So, and also the pop on it it's pretty poppy paddle. So I was just not.
I didn't struggle with any of those aspects.
All right, you're used to a longer paddle also. Feel of it, we just described it. It's stiffish. This Hyperion felt a little less stiff than I remembered it, but more similar to like a Gen 2 thermoform paddle.
It did not feel as stiff as I remember it either.
Okay.
Yep. It's been a while since I've picked up a Yola.
Gotcha. I had a total score of 38.
A 40 here.
Okay. Pegasus power, so they're wide body power paddle. What was your?
7 on power.
8 for me.
What was your Vapor power?
Yeah, I was just about to say I'm going to modify that to a 7 also, because the Vapor was scored 8 and it definitely has a higher, more power. Pop for you?
A 7.
Same. I might modify that up to an 8 though, because I scored the Vapor at an 8 for Pop, and the Pegasus definitely does not have less pop than the Vapor. So I'm going to score it an 8. So I got a 7 for power, 8 for Pop. Sweet Spot?
An 8.
I got a 9 for the Sweet Spot on this.
Yeah. I think you and I are sort of veering away from each other as far as Sweet Spot go between these two paddles. I feel like the shape of the Vapor, you would expect that Sweet Spot to be narrower. And for me, it wasn't. If anything, it's elongated but not narrower.
Okay.
Because of the head shape that's sort of broader on top.
Yeah. I might end up agreeing with you in the long run. I do feel like the width of the Sweet Spot is massive on a Pegasus.
It really is.
Yeah. So.
Yep. But either way, you're getting massive Sweet Spot.
Yeah.
If it's the difference
times
of 10%,
width, it's going to be similar, right?
Right.
All right. Spin.
An 8.
10 for me, and control.
So this is where I came down a little bit. I'm at a 7 on this one.
Same for me. 7 for control.
Yep.
Which is odd because it gets crazy spin and a really big sweet spot, but it's that pop that's and the stiffness of it. That's driving my control score down.
Yep.
And the feel is stiffish and dense. 41 total for me.
37 here.
Okay. Lastly, the Apes Pulse V. So I scored the power at 7.
Same.
The pop at 7.
A little higher for me at 8.
Okay. Sweet spot, 10 on this one for me.
was almost at a 10. I'm at a 9.
Okay. Spin 8.
Same.
Okay, and control 9 for me.
Same.
Really similar. And just soft, wonderful plush feel. Love it.
I still think this is the best ball striking paddle on the market today.
It is a great paddle. 41 total for me.
41 as well here.
Okay. All right, let's put this in perspective. Wrap this up. Let's sort by our perception of power, first of all. So, where do the new 11Six24 paddles fit in the overall scheme of power paddles today? We've got a couple of sources of data here. We actually have a radar gun, and we've got our perception. Let's start with our perception. We've got Ronbus Ripple at the top, Gearbox Pro Ultimate Hyper right below that, ESQC 14.3. This is my power ratings. It's going to be slightly different than yours. So let me know when it's off track from yours. I know those first three were in line, right, for power. So actually the ESQC 14.3 is tied with 3 others. So we've got 4 tied for third place. Vapor Power, ESQC 12.7, Hyperion 3S.
Yep.
Okay. And then third place, there are 2 tied for that. And I've got the Pegasus Power and the Apes Pulse V.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to yours. Okay. Pop, it's going to be very similar, but slightly different. So biggest pop, Ripple again. Next, I have 4 in a row, which are tied for second. So I've got Vapor Power, ESQC 12.7, Hyperion 3S, and the Pegasus Power. Like I said, I might come down a little bit on the Vapor Pop, the subjective score. Doesn't feel as poppy to me as the Pegasus.
So you're looking at your chart right now.
I'm looking at my chart, yeah.
Yep.
Where do yours fit in there?
It's similar. I had my gearbox a little bit higher than you did, I believe, on Pop.
The third place for me, 2 are tied for third, Gearbox Pro Ultimate Hyper and Apes Pulse V, and fourth place for me is ESQC 14.3.
Yep. I had my Pegasus Power down the list on Pop, but for the most part, we're similar.
Yeah. And that roughly lines up with our radar gun data. So again, your average surf speed, highest is the Ripple, followed by the Gearbox Pro Ultimate Hyper, followed by the Vapor Power, then the ESQ 14.3, followed by the ESQ 12.7, Hyperion 3S, Pegasus Power, Apes Pulse V.
It makes total sense.
Total sense. So what we're seeing here is the 11Six24 power paddles are fitting between, they're not the top tier power. They're not going to be Ronbus R2, Ronbus Ripple levels or Gearbox Pro Power or Ultimate levels, but they fall somewhere between that. Somewhere close to the Paddletech Bantam series, really close. They kind of dovetail in between the highest, most powerful paddles and those below. And then they're more powerful so the Vapor is going to be a little more powerful than the Pegasus. And the Pegasus is a little lower in terms of overall power, closer to the Apes Pulse V, which is at the bottom of this list. Hyperion 3S is, again, interchangeable with the Paddletech Bantams.
So my takeaway from this is, from my perception, giving away a little bit of power gets me a little bit more sweet spot, a little bit more control and spin. Yeah. Those are the trade-offs that I saw in my data. How about you? Yeah,
same. So it's like when I was serving with the Ripple, I was getting 64-mile-an-hour serves, but they were not going in, right? And maybe I could have got it dialed in. The others, I was consistently getting 61, 62 miles an hour, and most of those were going in. For the highest, not everyone was 61 miles an hour, but the biggest serves were over 60. But with the highest power paddles, you're losing that control. I felt much more comfortable in the realm of the Vapor and the ESQs than I did with the higher ones, right?
One thing I love about the Apes Pulse and the Vapor and some of these paddles that are down a little bit on the power curve is that I can hit a low topspin drive, from basically a foot off the ground from near mid-court and still have that be a playable ball. I don't think I could do that with a Ronbus Ripple or a Gearbox Hyper. And that's a major part of my game is to be able to hit a shot like that.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that too. Like your drives were on point with the mid-tier and lower-tier power paddles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very cool.
Anything else you want to discuss on this, Eddie?
No, that's a fun experiment.
Absolutely. All right.
How much are these new paddles?
They're going to be $170 without code, and codes are 10% off that. So
totally worth it.
Yeah, he's coming in just at the right price.
Ditch the gradient, and we got ourselves a winner.
I don't mind the gradient because I don't see it. Maybe if I saw it, I'd love it. All right, a couple more paddles to briefly discuss. Diadem sent us their new paddles, new shapes in their existing lineup. So we've got the Edge 18K. I think this is their thermoformed one. So yeah, their power. And these are basically their standard shape versions of their existing paddles. And then the Icon Max, which is, again, their standard shape. So 16 inches long, 8 inches wide. Mm-hmm. I'd say that both of these... I'm sure there are people who love the Edge 18K elongated model, and they would love that more than this. To me, both of these are an improvement over their elongated shapes, in particular, this Icon. I never liked any of the other Icons. I thought they felt like boards, similar to like the Selkirk Power Air. But this one, I was impressed with. Like,
it's got a nice springy feel.
It's reminiscent of the Gearbox Pro Ultimate Hyper.
That's interesting you would say that because it has that same disconnected face
feel. Interesting.
I'm going to find some better words to describe that, but maybe some of our listeners can help with that.
Yeah. I mean, not as powerful as the Gearbox, but decent power. It does have a grit finish, but the grit provides good texture. I don't know how durable it is. That's the key. Now, granted, I did not play with it stock. You've been playing with it for a few days. You leaded it up. You've got 6 grams of lead on each side, so a significant weight, which absolutely must have increased the twist weight and sweet spot of this. But I felt like it had a decent sweet spot for an edgeless paddle. And yeah, it's a dense feel, and yeah, not many vibrations in it. I enjoy playing it. The only thing I don't like about both these shapes is the shorter handle. I think it's a 5.25 inch handle on both of these. So, it's hard to get 2 hands on it. Otherwise, this one impressed me. I was happy with it.
It was a lot of fun to play with. That weighted up with 12 grams. It's coming in at 112.7.
That's
swing
it.
Weight,
okay.
And 8.4
holy cow
twist weight. So it is very, very forgiving, easy to play with, a lot of fun. The other one's definitely more on the control side, that Edge 18K.
Yeah.
Very plush feeling, very soft.
Solid paddle. Good spin on this too. It has the 18K woven carbon fiber and peel ply over it.
It has some shapeshifter vibe, not just in look, but in feel.
Yeah.
It's a solid control paddle.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about the Engage?
Oh, yeah. Do you have that with you?
Shoot.
Let's kick that can down the road.
Yeah, okay.
Unless we're going to show it. We should talk about it later. All right, let's move on. So don't have a deep dive this week, but I do want to raise a question. Are ugly paddles better performers? And I'm not talking about graphics and color schemes. I'm talking about the shape.
That would have been a fun conversation.
I'm talking about the shape of the paddles. Are the ones that are less...
What makes a paddle shape ugly, John?
Well, that begs the question, what does an aesthetically pleasing paddle look like? Like, we've all seen, like, what's the Da Vinci man? What's he called?
Vitruvian
man, yeah. There's kind of the perfect proportions, of shoulder width, the hip for men versus women, and all this. And I think we carry this concept of beauty over into paddles, right? And the I think what most people can agree on is a pretty shaped paddle is an elongated paddle.
Right? Is or is not?
Is an elongated paddle. Definitely less squarish, but not round, somewhere in between. So, the arrow curve top, not quite, definitely not completely circular arrow curve, but something more subtle convexity to the top of the paddle.
So bigger radius versus a tight radius.
Exactly. Right. And then the taper also, I think, is aesthetically pleasing.
Agree. So
the 6 Series, they're the first ones to introduce that. So going from
I'm
narrow
looking at the Vapor
bottom
now.
to
it's got a very gentle taper. It's got a slightly arched top, big radius, and then a nice taper towards the handle. And the handle length to face ratio, I think, is also important for that beauty aspect.
That's a really good point. So, yeah, short, stubby handles, ugly. Yes. Super long handles, weird. So, I think like the 5.5-inch handle is kind of the epitome of the aesthetic look for me.
Yeah.
Maybe it can go slightly longer if the paddle is also longer. But when the paddle gets really long and the face gets really short, it starts looking funny. But yeah, I think you're right too. The neck curvature is another big one. And the taper we're talking about is narrower down here at 4 1/8 versus at the top of the paddle, which this does have that slight one. I'd say that this convexity at the top is too not as pronounced as I would like. I think that the perfect convexity, hand me that Hurricane Pro if you would. Yeah, that's the one. For a standard shape paddle, I think this is the most beautiful shape.
I think the neonic behind you there is a really good example
the same shape.
Of. Yeah. Is it exactly the same?
Yep. So these two.
That neonic flare is really nice.
For a standard shape paddle, it doesn't get any more beautiful than these. Right? Eddie's favorite. He loves this paddle.
That's like a pure rounded top. Right?
Yeah. That's what happens when it's too convex at the top.
Oh, thank you.
No,
sorry.
It gets ugly.
Great paddle.
So something about this is less appealing to me than this shape. So I can't explain it.
But I think we agree that a short handle on a big face that is a square is not very appealing.
Right. So to bring this all back to the point of it, are the uglier paddles better performers? Now, I've got a great example here. So Matt from Chorus, the owner of Chorus, has put a lot of thought into his paddles. He always has. Mm-hmm. And his original shapeshifter was the arrow curve top in a hybrid shape. And there's a slight taper. It's got all the things going for it. That's a pretty paddle. I mean, it's very similar to the 6.0 Diamond series, which are also pretty paddles, but just has everything going for it. Perfect linked handle. It's it could be a little bit longer handle, but that 5.3 to 5.4 inch is fine. Also, it's got the good taper in the neck. It's got the perfect curvature on the top and the slight taper. And this is a hybrid paddle, so it's comes in at like 16.3 inches long, right? And just under 8 inches wide. Now he changed the shape of his hybrid paddles. This is going to be the new shapeshifter, HX. So these are the same paddles, but this is the new shape. Mm-hmm. It's just the same length and same width, but this one is now squared off. It also has a slight taper, but he's done away with the arrow curve top. And the taper of the neck is wider on the newer shape. And it's overall just more square, right? So which of these two paddles do you think is more aesthetically pleasing?
Yeah, the original shapeshifter.
For sure. I think most people agree on that.
It gives up a little in surface area.
That's the key.
Weight.
That's the point of this, is that this paddle is more likely to be a better performer than this one based on its shape. So it's filling in some of the gaps that this one's leaving on the table. Mm-hmm. And when you make your paddle wider, it's going to have a bigger twist weight. And that twist weight is going to correlate fairly highly with the width of the sweet spot. Not always, but for the most part, yes. So bigger sweet spot, wider paddles. And every little tenth of an inch matters quite a bit for twist weight and swing weight. So the advantage of not having a taper is a bigger twist weight. So if you look at the Honolulu J2K, that's why that's such a great performer. It doesn't have the taper. It looks similar to the 6.0 Diamond series, but it has a bigger stock twist weight because it loses that taper, and you're getting like 0.2 of an inch more width at the bottom of the paddle, right? Similarly, this shapeshifter, the new HX shape, is going to have a bigger stock twist weight. Now,
I was just trying to look that up. Do you know the numbers on that?
I don't. But I know it is bigger than the original.
All right.
Now, the trade-off with filling in the gaps is a bigger swing weight also. As the twist weight goes up, As you lose the arrow curve on top, you're filling in weight at the top of the paddle also. So this one probably is going, other things being equal, it would have a higher swing weight also. But I think Matt is cognizant of that, and he's adding internal perimeter weighting. I think like some similar tape, either carbon fiber tape or maybe fiberglass tape toward the bottom. He might add some weight, I think some extra weight in the handle also to bring down the balance point. You're not going to ever bring down the swing weight, so it's definitely going to have a higher swing weight unless you're able to reduce the density up top. You're not going to ever add weight to the bottom of the paddle and reduce the swing weight. So I guess I should have figured out the swing weight of this compared to the original one. But I think it's fair to say that, not that it's possible to play pickleball blindfolded, but if you could, and you could feel the difference between this paddle and not look at them, I think that most people would prefer to play with the HX, the newer shape of these two, because it is going to be a more forgiving paddle with a bigger sweet spot.
Could you potentially argue that you lose some maneuverability with that extra swing weight?
Swing weight for sure. Twist weight debatable. Some people claim that like flicks and these type of wristy movements are harder with a bigger twist weight, and absolutely at some point that's gonna make a difference. But I don't know if it's like, a 6 versus 6.5 score for twist weight. You're gonna feel that, or more like 10 plus twist weight, then that's gonna make it more difficult to.
But just the swing weight of it, not the twist weight, but
just the swing
from
weight
here, like to there.
Even that, yeah. Even that's gonna
lose something, right?
Gonna lose some maneuverability for sure. So,
and what about that arrow top? The marketing is that they make the paddle so aerodynamic, they're just slipping through the air at great speed.
So, give me a paddle. Here's Eddie's next paddle. Neonic top with a gigantic hole in the throat, like the new Selkirk 007.
Oh, yes, please. That's my dream.
With a gradient edge, too.
Yeah, the arrow hole as well. It's just you're gaining so many miles per hour.
Just put the hole like in the entire bottom of the paddle, like right there. How about that?
Well, apparently I don't use that part anyway, so it's.
Yeah, but I mean, I think there's definitely something to the arrow curve increasing hand speed because the swing weight drops, right? Not a significant amount, but it's noticeable.
So your hypothesis is that ugly paddles do play better.
In some ways. I'd say, okay, which is more important? So it's a trade-off, right? Which is more important, swing weight or twist weight?
Swing weight.
You think it's more important? You think that's more of is a high swing weight more of a deterrent than a low twist weight?
Ah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
They're both important.
Equally?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on what the numbers are. Let's say
if
that
you had a 125 swing weight paddle and a huge twist weight, it's going to be stable, but you can't do anything with that.
Yeah. So we're speaking in terms of like the ratio of swing weight to twist weight. So a higher ratio of swing weight to twist weight is going to be a less forgiving paddle that's heavy, feel heavy in the hands. And a lower ratio is going to be a more maneuverable paddle with a bigger twist weight. So let's say that you can go up to 118 swing weight. And 118 is not the most maneuverable, but it's not bad. And your twist weight is over 7. At that point, I think that's a really good paddle statistics, right? Good metrics on the paddle. Even lower on the twist weight, let's say you can get it down to 116 with the over 7 twist weight. That's going to be a paddle I think most people would agree is very forgiving and maneuverable, right? So that's what we're seeing in terms of the wide body or standard shape paddles, which most people think are uglier than elongated paddles. I think they play better. I think, like, objectively, for players that are not used to playing with an elongated for years plus, and pros like Ben Johns who've been playing with it forever, I think people coming in at the sub 5.0 level, sub 4.5 level, or just getting into the sport are much better suited with a wide body paddle. What you're giving up in length, you're more than making up for in forgiveness and the size of the sweet spot. And I'd say that most people are also going to think those wide body paddles are uglier.
So the argument that elongated paddles are going to give you more reach, more capability to get to balls, does that really play out? I mean, you're looking at less than an inch of extended reach.
I mean, honestly, I do. I've felt it before.
Yeah.
Like I've shanked when I've gone from especially from elongated to a standard or wide body. I've shanked a few balls before I map onto the size of the paddle. Shanked a few balls off the tip. And I do think that, even let's say half an inch or less can make a big difference on the feel of the paddle, especially when you're tuned into it. But I'm more than happy to give that up because you do adapt, but you can never adapt.
Sure.
Well, I shouldn't say never. You can't adapt as easily to a smaller sweet spot, a more narrow sweet spot.
I will say the wide bodies are getting more attractive as we go on.
Yeah. They're starting to find better proportions.
Yep. I mean, that neonic and hurricane shape is getting to be pretty classic at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
Very good.
Okay. That was fun. Okay.
What about ugly people?
Well,
do they play better?
Like I said in the intro, I mean, if that were the case, I'd be.
If you can't have looks, you may as well have skill.
I wish it worked that way. All right. So, gear of the week update on Winter's Edge shoes. So, we gave a positive initial impression. Have you been wearing yours at all?
I wore mine a few times, John. They are a little bit more stability than I need. And so it's probably not my go-to shoe.
I hear you.
But I could see how it would be a really good fit for somebody.
Yeah. A lot of people have been talking about these on different podcasts, and I've heard a lot of good things. Who was it saying that they're more like, I think it was Justin from Pickleball, etc., saying that they're more like recovery shoes. Like if you're recovering from foot injury or plantar fasciitis, these are excellent. I totally agree. But if your feet are completely healthy, you have no problems, and you like a low-profile shoe where you're closer to the court, then these are not going to be for you. They are a little heavier. I've been maining these since the day I got them, I guess 3 weeks ago now. I still, from day one, I feel like they are some of the most comfortable court shoes that I've ever used. They have the booties on them, which to me secures my foot in there. I've heard some people complain about having to cinch the strings too tight and getting pressure from string pressure on the top of their foot, which is uncomfortable. I have not noticed that, even though I have narrow feet and I am forced to really cinch down the laces. You can see here, like I cinched them down so much that the stock laces are too long. I mean, I need to get some smaller, smaller laces. But I love the feel of these. The insoles of these are extremely comfortable. I don't have to replace them with better ones like I have to do on all the other court shoes I have. But I have noticed one drawback, and this is still a preliminary observation, but I would say that the outsoles of these shoes are wearing down fairly quickly. Now, this is after 3 weeks of use. And they start off with a very different texture on the outsoles than you see on most. It's a unidirectional horizontal lines that go through here, and then some kind of, random lines between those. But it's not like the checkerboard or a dual textured outsole surface like you see on most other court shoes. And they start out, like if we're comparing this to a tire on a car or a truck, the tread would be really small on these stock. I am seeing some wear on these. So the top of them, where it normally wears around the ball of my foot, it's wearing down fairly quickly. I'd say I put it on par with like the Adidas shoes, which wear down fairly quickly. What I don't know is how thick the outsole is underneath the texture. So it might be the case that this goes bald on the ball of your foot, and then you still get 3 months of use out of it, which is not an issue to. I don't mind sliding a little bit, it gets great grip. Not saying that these are sliding, but if it was totally bald, you probably would, have a tendency to slide when you come to a abrupt halt. I don't mind that, but I don't like it when I wear through the outsole of the shoe. So it's still kind of a preliminary observation. These might not be the most durable soles on their shoes. So maybe if in another month or so, if I am wearing through the soles, maybe some good feedback for Winter's Edge would be, all right, let's try that.
Oh, you've got even more wear on the right side.
Yeah, sure am. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why my right knee is hurting. I'm pivoting on my right leg too much.
Looks that way.
Yeah. So just an update on Winner's Edge.
I will say the quality of the shoe is pretty outstanding. If they were to make a kind of a lightweight, non-stability shoe, I'd be all over that.
Yeah.
Because they are super comfortable.
Absolutely. Okay, I wanted to talk also, this isn't necessarily gear, but it's kind of more of our kind of favorite things stuff. The new year is coming quickly, and in January we'll readdress this, kind of come up with some tips for productivity. Everybody wants to be more productive at the beginning of the year, and they have set goals. But I have a few productivity apps that I wanted to mention that I keep coming back to. I've been using most of these now for years. And I'll just go through them. So an app that is kind of like a to-do list, a checklist that I use on a daily basis is Structured. And it's just a real easy way to kind of organize your day. It gives you like a calendar output right away, and you can just click on your phone. There's also an app for your computer, so you can toggle between the two and kind of move your tasks to different parts of the day, and you click on them. And it sounds really basic. It is basic in concept, but it's something about the layout of it and the user interface is just extremely easy to use and very intuitive. And it's easy to make repeating tasks. So, I have my wake up morning routine, and I'll put meditation in there under, on the days that I'm working out at the gym, I'll switch it around, and it's really easy to choose Monday, Tuesday, then Thursday and Friday for your tasks and that sort of thing. And you can set notifications on the app so that it gives you a little buzz if you want that, or you can turn those off. So a really, really quality app. So again, that one's Structured. Things is another task-oriented app that I use a lot, and it allows you to create task lists. And I use this mostly actually for pickleball. So when I'm brainstorming ideas that I want to drill for the week, I'll create pickleball drills for the week of X, and then I'll just put those drills in. When I get to the court, I won't forget anymore what I wanted to work on for the drills. So that's just another basic task list. We've got Any List also, and that one allows you to share. I think this one actually might be free. If it's not free, it's really, really cheap. And this is what my wife Michelle and I use for shared grocery lists. And you can share lists across devices. Do
you use anything for family time management?
The Structured is actually for that as well.
All right.
Yeah. And Things also has categories for your to-do list. So if you're I've got these ideas of things I want to do with the boys, then you throw that into a list there.
We use one called Cozy, C-O-Z-I.
Okay.
It's just an easy way for us to share calendars, so we know where each other are and what we're up to. And
I love that.
We don't have to get into, well, you said we were doing this on this day, and it's on another day? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So it's just easy.
So it's Structured lists, and you can share it between devices.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, that's really cool.
It's more of a calendaring function than a task list, though.
Okay. Yeah, and then my last one is Day One. It's a journaling app, and they just keep updating it. And I've been using this for years now. And you just go in and you can type out a detailed journal for each day, or just jot down a few bullet points. You can add photographs that geotags your where you were and the weather when you entered your diary, and you can search and find out. It'll send you notifications on what you're doing last year and that sort of thing. Just a solid journaling app.
I can't tell you how many times in my life I've started a journal and gotten to about 3 or 4 entries, and that's it.
Michelle got this book for us, a dual journal, where it prompts you for each day of the year, and it's 4 years long. And we started this 4 years ago, and it finally fizzled out on our last year. We're just after the third year was the stretch. You're like, several times I caught myself writing the exact same thing I wrote the last year, not knowing. I thought thought this brilliant little thing, and I looked back at last year and it's almost word for word. Fourth year, just I'm out of ideas. I can only think of 3 things, so forget about this. We both just kind of stopped doing it in March, but that was a fun book.
It's a great habit. I just have not been able to sustain it for more than a handful of days for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it useful for, just especially the search function of it. If you want to go back and remember who you're with or what you're doing, 3 years ago, it's just kind of a useful thing. And it's just kind of fun to search your past you. What was past Eddie doing 3 years ago? Who knows?
Got to look into your ratings about what you say about me. Dear diary, I really screwed up on the court again today.
All right, we got one last section, Eddie. Q&A.
Yes.
You pulled up some questions.
Yeah. The first one's really relative to the twist weight discussion we just had from Siraj Killer 123. Is twist weight relative to paddle shape? And I think we've already determined that it is. Yeah. So his or her example is if an elongated paddle has a twist weight of 6, is that like a hybrid having a twist weight of 6.5 or a standard shape having a twist weight of 7?
Yeah.
And maybe that's not an exact data-driven correlation.
It's close.
I would say that's pretty accurate, right?
Yeah. What we could absolutely is true. Shapes determine swing weight and twist weight. And I think that's a good average for the range. We could get into my database and run those averages, but I've done it before. But for standard and wide body paddles, it's going to be 7+. Hybrid paddles, somewhere mid 6s. Elongated paddles, just below 6, I think is the average.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's all adjustable with customized weight setups and things like that. But everything's a trade-off. You want to add twist weight, you're going to gain some swing weight as well. So
for sure.
Be thoughtful of that. Okay, Greg S69RS says that he prefers the squishy handles. So we talked about handles a lot last week. I think me more than you has a preference for very sort of firm, stiff handles. Greg likes the squishy ones because they absorb vibration. Good for my tennis elbow. What are your thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid point. It might just be totally subjective too, where you just like the feel of a squishy handle in your hands. I think there is also something to less vibrations and better vibration damping with foam rather than polyurethane or carbon fiber in the handle. I do think that higher density foam would be more vibration damping than the cheaper, super squishy foam. I'm thinking like a really dense EVA foam versus something cheap in there. But yeah, valid point. If you have problems with tennis elbow, and you don't mind squishy or actually prefer the feel of it, then go squishy.
Go squishy. That sounds like a T-shirt. I think my perspective on this, John, is that for me, in order to get better as a player, I need feedback. And that's feedback from others, from objective analysis, but it's also in every single swing, every contact with the ball that I make. And that's diminished by a squishy handle for me.
Yeah.
If it's off center, I want to feel it and know that right away.
Right.
And so that's what a very stiff handle gives me, is that immediate kinesthetic feedback.
Yeah. I think in the future for you, Eddie, you're going to go to stiffer and stiffer paddle faces also. You're going to move away from the Apes and maybe go more toward the 11Six24.
You know what? I've been there. I've been to stiff faces, and I moved into more plush feeling faces.
Yeah. Well, I could see, the counterbalance also between the face of the paddle and the handle.
Exactly.
So the handle allowing you to feel some of those vibrations, but not the harshness you get from a stiff face. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, John. Very good. How about a couple more?
Let's do it.
Question from Jet Jaguar regarding the Pulse Apes, the Apes Pulse, excuse me. When you hit outside the sweet spot on the Pulse, does the ball die faster than, say, on a J2K or other comparable paddle? So they're talking about that kind of cliff of diminishing returns as you get further away from the sweet spot. Just curious, because when you hit the sweet spot, the power and pop is excellent, but it seems like you got to be a 4.0 to use this paddle, as I am a 2.5 trending up to 2.7.
The Apes Pulse V?
In this case, the Pulse S.
Pulse S, okay. Boy, I'd say it depends on how broken in the paddle is. It does get more forgiving.
It does.
As you play with it more. And it is a little stiff, especially the S when you first start with it. But in terms of the say that bell curve of where the sweet spot is and the drop off in terms of the ball response, the ball velocity off the sweet spot. What did you want to compare it to?
The J2K.
J2K. Ooh. I think the J2K is wider than the Pulse S. I think the Pulse S is hybrid shape in terms of its length, but it's a little bit narrower. So in that regard, I'd say that stock, yes, it's likely that the J2K is slightly more forgiving and you get a flatter bell curve for the sweet spot from side to side on the paddle.
Yep.
I mean, the J2K is notoriously has one of the biggest sweet spots for a hybrid paddle. However, I'd say that your broken end S has as good of a sweet spot as the J2K.
Yeah, the information's not here to know how long he's been playing with the Pulse or the J2K. So that would be an important factor, is to just give that paddle some time, because it is going to loosen up beautifully and become much more forgiving over time.
Right. Yeah, good question. I like that.
I like that. 2.5 trending up to 2.75.
I like it. He knows exactly where he is.
That's he or she. I'm a 4.0 leaning 4.25. Sometimes 3.75. All right, one more, John, just for fun. What would get you more excited? A new paleontological, archaeological discovery, or a game-changing paddle innovation?
Ooh.
What gets
Fun
John
question.
Q's juices flowing?
Fun question. You know, I'd had to give it to, let's say they found something amazing in the archaeology world. I'd have to give it to that, because that is much more profound than something in the paddle world. On a day-to-day basis, I'm much more excited by my paddles these days than archaeology. I mean, I've been in the world of archaeology for decades now, and I love it. It's one of my biggest passions. It's my career, and but you know, knowing it so well, it takes a lot to get me excited. So some new find, let's say that, you know, on the order of like Atlantis or something. Of course, that's going to be like that blow my mind more than, you know, a paddle with a big swing weight. You know? However, like I said, the day-to-day stuff, I'm loving figuring out pickleball, the technology behind it, the gear behind it. It's such a brave new world, you know. It's we don't know how the game is played yet, how the game is most effectively played. We're still figuring out the game, and we're still figuring out the technology behind the game, and it's kind of a fun time to be in it. You know what I mean?
John, 20 generations from now, our but our progeny will be looking at us, digging up our old bones and domiciles, and they'll come across the studio with 300 paddles. What do you think future Dr. Q will say about his archaeological find?
Who is this lush with 400 paddles? Why did he need so many paddles? Yeah. And I'm getting more and more, there's more and more gear pumping into this basement. The entire basement, it will be a laboratory at one point, the John Q pickleball laboratory. There's more to come. So I'll be revealing some stuff in 2025 that I'm working on.
We'll be offering paid tours of the laboratory to any staff or locals interested in seeing what you got.
People will be amazed how small this recording studio is.
It is tiny.
That's the next frontier for us, Eddie.
Ooh, an addition.
Expanding our recording space.
All right. That's it for Q&A, John.
Cool.
All right. So, Melin, enter the contest. Happy holidays, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eddie.
All right, John.